DC Podcast.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Today, we're tackling a topic that's, well, kind of huge EE. The history of life on Earth, seen through the lens of evolution. We're talking billions of years, folks.
And you know what? People think of evolution as something in the past, right? Like dinosaurs and fossils. But it's happening right now, all around us.
Which is what we're going to dig into today. We've got some incredible sources lined up, packed with mind-blowing details. And I'm telling you, there are going to be some serious aha moments along the way. So buckle up.
I'm ready.
Okay, so before we get to T-Rex and all that cool stuff, we got to start at the very beginning. How did life actually arise on Earth in the first place? That's got to be a tough one to answer.
Well, imagine this. Earth, about 4 billion years ago, it's like a completely different planet, right? Volcanoes, molten rock, an atmosphere you wouldn't last a minute in.
Sounds lovely.
Not exactly a vacation spot. But somehow, in this crazy primordial soup, the first building blocks of life appear. We're talking incredibly simple, single-celled organisms.
Single-celled, like as basic as it gets.
As basic as it gets, B-U-T, here's the thing. They are the ancestors of every single living thing on Earth today, us included.
Whoa! So we can actually trace our lineage back to these little guys.
That's right. It's like this gigantic family tree branching out over billions of years. And as we move through time on that tree, things start getting more complex, more diverse. Take the Cambrian explosion, for instance. About 540 million years ago, it was like a sudden burst of new life forms, the foundation for all the amazing biodiversity we see today. Pretty incredible, right?
Okay, so from single-celled to a sudden explosion of life, and then come the dinosaurs. They ruled the planet for, what, millions of years? What can we learn from their rise and fall, especially about evolution?
Well, the reign of the dinosaurs during the Mesozoic era, that was all about adaptation, you know? They evolved to fill every role imaginable. Think about it. Giant herbivores like Brachiosaurus munching on leaves way up high. And then you've got fearsome predators like a T-Rex.
Classic. Everyone loves a T-Rex.
Right. But their extinction, likely caused by that massive asteroid impact, shows us that even the most successful species, the ones that seem to rule the world, can be wiped out by sudden changes in the environment. It makes you think, right?
It really does. Especially because now we're dealing with gradual changes like climate change. If dinosaurs couldn't handle a sudden event, what does that mean for species today?
It's a big question, and to answer it, we got to understand how evolution really works. And that brings us to natural selection. You've probably heard the phrase survival of the fittest.
Oh yeah, classic.
But it's not just about being the strongest or the fastest. It's about which individuals have the traits that best suit them to their environment at a specific time, right? Those are the ones who survive, reproduce, and pass on those traits.
So fittest basically means best fit for that environment. I get it. Got any examples of natural selection actually happening?
Sure. Take MRSA, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. It's a bacteria that's become resistant to a lot of antibiotics.
Yeah.
Really tough to treat.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Scary stuff.
It is. And it happened because originally this bacteria was susceptible to methicillin, an antibiotic. But then we overused it, misused it, and we created an environment where the resistant strains had a survival advantage.
So the ones that could handle methicillin, they survived, multiplied, and passed on those resistant genes.
Exactly. Now, MRSA is a serious public health problem. Shows you how our actions can actually influence evolution. It's not just a natural process happening on its own.
That's a little unnerving to think about.
Yeah.
So natural selection is like the main engine of evolution, but there are other things that play too, right? Not just survival of the fittest.
You got it. There's genetic drift, which is basically all about chance, random events. It's how gene frequencies fluctuate within a population, even without any advantage or disadvantage from the traits themselves.
Okay, so it's not about being the best fit. It's just random.
Right. Like, imagine a small group of birds, some with blue feathers, some with green. A big storm comes along and just by pure chance wipes out most of the blue-feathered birds.
Bad luck for the bluebirds.
Right. So the next generation of birds, they'll likely have more green feathers, not because green is a better adaptation, but just because of that random event. It's like a genetic lottery.
Wow, okay. And then there's speciation, right? How do new species actually come about?
That happens when populations of a species get separated. Could be geographically, like by a mountain range or a river, or reproductively, where they can't interbreed for other reasons. Over time, those separate groups, they start to accumulate different genetic changes just because they're in different environments or experience different random mutations.
So they're on different evolutionary paths now.
Exactly. And eventually, those differences get so big that the two groups, they can't interbreed anymore. Boom, you've got two distinct species.
That makes sense. It all ties together. But I'm thinking about something you said earlier. The dinosaurs, they were so successful, adapting over millions of years. But they couldn't adapt to that asteroid. So how can some species be so resilient while others just can't adapt fast enough to survive? It seems like a contradiction.
That's a really sharp observation, and it's a question that evolutionary biologists are still debating. The key seems to be the pace of environmental change. For a long time, people thought evolution was this slow, gradual process.
Just slow and steady changes over time.
Right. But now we know it can happen in bursts, too, especially when there's a big environmental shift. The question is, with things like climate change happening so fast, can species adapt quickly enough to keep up? It's like a race against time.
So understanding that resilience, how well a species can handle change, that's crucial for conservation, right?
Exactly. Some species are just naturally more adaptable. Maybe they've got a lot of genetic diversity or they live in a wide range of places. By figuring out which species are the most resilient, we can focus our conservation efforts on those and hopefully help them through these tough times.
So from those first single-celled organisms to the challenges species face today, it's clear. Evolution isn't just some event in the past. It's a process that's still going strong, and we're right in the middle of it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And here's the really mind-blowing part. We're not just products of evolution, we're actually agents of change ourselves. Our actions, how we impact habitats and the climate, that's shaping the evolutionary path of countless species, including us.
Wow, that's a powerful thought. And that brings us to our final thought for all of you listening today. Knowing what we now know about the history of life, the power of evolution, how can we use that knowledge to create a future where both humanity and the natural world can thrive?
Something to ponder, folks.